Welcome back to Respoiled. Today, I have another captivating story to share with you. But before we dive in, if you're new here, I invite you to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications, so you'll never miss out on all of my latest uploads. Now let's get started. In a world devastated by apocalypse, Mallory tunes into a radio message broadcasting news of a welcoming safe shelter. She gathers her two nameless kids and with a serious tone, announces they'll take a boat down the river. It's crucial for the children to never take off their blindfolds, or they'll die. Then, she grabs a box with their pet birds, and the group leaves their home, following a string trail to reach the boat without seeing. This all began 5 years ago when Mallory, a pregnant artist, was visited by her sister Jessica. While they chat, they don't pay much attention to the TV newscast reporting on unexplained mass self-deletions that started in Siberia and are now spreading across Europe. Afterward, the sisters go to the hospital for Mallory's appointment. The baby checkup goes well, and on their way out, Mallory and Jess notice a woman acting erratically and hurting her head against the glass window. Outside, total chaos reigns as people run in panic, crash their cars, and scavenge for anything to help them self-delete. Whatever afflicted Europe now plagues the USA. Scared, the sisters hurry to their car, attempting to drive away. Suddenly, Jessica's eyes change color, and she drives recklessly, ignoring Mallory's pleas to slow down. The car flips and crashes due to the reckless speed, but both sisters survive. Mallory crawls out cautiously, witnessing her sister's tragic death as she steps into the street and is struck by a passing truck. Distraught and panicked, Mallory joins the frantic crowd as chaos and fear escalate, with cars exploding around them. As the crowd pushes Mallory down, a woman emerges from a nearby house to assist her, disregarding her husband Douglas's protests. However, before reaching Mallory, the woman abruptly enters a trance-like state. Engaging with an unseen entity, she enters a burning car nearby, which promptly explodes. Subsequently, a man named Tom aids Mallory and escorts her to the house, where Douglas adamantly refuses to unlock the door. The homeowner, Greg, chooses to assist and admits them, along with other survivors. They commence sharing their conjectures regarding the unfolding events, such as demonic occurrences or the apocalypse, but none possess a substantiated explanation. One certainty prevails. Direct exposure to the entity compels individuals to self-delete. Despite the peril, a couple contacts their son, learning of his jeopardy, and ventures out of the house in search of him. The TV broadcast illustrates the worldwide spread of the phenomenon, but all signals abruptly cease, halting programming and phone communication. The remaining survivors opt to cover all windows, shielding themselves from external views. At the current moment, Mallory and the children have been on the river for 6 hours. Mallory persists in reaching out over the radio and ensures everyone stays covered with a blanket, also regularly checking on the birds in the box. When the birds become agitated, Mallory hears the entity whispering her name and strives to ignore it. In the past, the group is startled by a knock. It's a survivor named Olympia seeking help because she's pregnant. Douglas opposes admitting more people, but Mallory criticizes him as heartless, and they choose to allow her in. Mallory takes a rifle as a precaution, and everyone keeps their eyes shut until they're certain Olympia poses no threat. Later, Greg steps forward to assess the situation by monitoring the outside using security cameras. The rest bind him to the chair in front of the monitors and depart, leaving him alone. Greg remains focused to avoid averting his gaze, and after a few minutes of silence, his expression shifts. The group hears an odd sound from the room and hurries inside to find Greg has fallen, smashing his head and instantly dying. They promptly destroy the screen. Later that night, Mallory struggles to sleep and wanders around the house, hearing another strange sound, which turns out to be Lucy and Felix being intimate. In the present, after 14 hours on the river, Mallory hears a man's voice urging her to remove the blindfold, assuring safety and promising food. Mallory warns the kids not to comply and fires her gun without aiming, but all her shots miss as the man leaps onto the boat, alarming the birds. He persists in trying to remove her blindfold, praising the entity's beauty, but Mallory resists. After a fierce struggle, she kills him with a machete. Meanwhile, in the past, the group faces dwindling food supplies, realizing that help won't arrive. Mallory, Tom, Douglas, Lucy, and Charlie decide to head to the supermarket together, believing in safety in numbers. They paint and shield the windows to prevent any accidental glimpses outside. Using the GPS, they navigate through streets cluttered with abandoned cars and numerous dead bodies. Despite encountering obstacles, the GPS alerts them to something surrounding the car as they drive on. They notice a shadow rattling the car with a whooshing sound, prompting them to drive faster in panic. The noises and shaking intensify, but eventually, the GPS indicates they've reached the supermarket. Hurriedly, they enter and only remove their blindfolds after covering all the windows. The group divides and begins collecting various supplies, including food and items for the babies. Mallory discovers some birds and chooses to bring them along. Douglas believes they should remain, but Mallory chastises him, stating it would be cruel to leave those in the house behind. Suddenly, the group hears knocking on a door, and Charlie identifies a familiar voice. It's his coworker, trapped in the freezer and pleading to be released. The group hesitates to trust him and cautiously opens the door slightly to verify, prompting the birds to react frantically, confirming the man is indeed the entity attempting to deceive them. The man insists the entity must be seen and pushes against the door, prompting Charlie to tackle him back into the fridge, enabling the others to lock it once more. Blood starts seeping out from beneath the door, confirming Charlie's demise. The group departs while still hearing the man's plea for freedom. Later that night at the house, they hear what seems like a car being driven away, prompting them to hurry into the garage, only to find Lucy and Felix have departed with their sole vehicle. In the present, Mallory finally pauses after 24 hours of continuous rowing. However, her concern for the kids prompts her to resume rowing soon after, but the boat accidentally collides with a sunken truck. The boy tumbles out of the boat, and Mallory grabs him just before he sinks, sacrificing their blanket and food. She wraps him in a jacket for warmth and steers the boat to shore, warning the kids to stay put while she scavenges for supplies. Mallory ties a string to the boat and ventures into the woods until she discovers a building, where she collects food and a fresh blanket. Her string isn't long enough, so she secures it to the furniture and keeps exploring. Then, a noise startles her, and she watches the string tremble before a shadow moves outside. Mallory dashes out of the building, sprinting through the forest as the entity whispers her name. She fires her gun blindly as a precaution, prompting the little girl to leave the boat and assist her. Mallory swiftly reaches the child before the entity, pulling her back into the boat and scolding her for disobeying. She reminds both kids to leave her behind if things get too dangerous. In the past, another survivor knocks on their door, and Olympia lets him in without consulting the others. Tom confirms Gary's innocence, and Gary reveals that only mentally unstable individuals can withstand the entity. He escaped from some deranged individuals who fled a mental institution and now compel others to view the entity, believing it to be beautiful. Despite Douglas's distrust, Cheryl intervenes, subdues him, and confines him in the garage. She permits Gary to remain. In the present, Mallory and the kids have been on the river for 38 hours. Mallory gathers everyone under a blanket to alert them about the approaching rapids, the most perilous stretch of the journey. With navigation essential, both kids offer to keep their eyes open. However, Mallory recalls her pledge to Olympia regarding her daughter's safety and cannot endanger her own son. Ultimately, she opts to brave the rapids blindly. Meanwhile, in the past, both Mallory and Olympia simultaneously began labor. Tom and Cheryl escort the women upstairs to their room, while Gary unveils a collection of chilling drawings, including his own creation, indicating he's one of the escaped individuals from the mental institution. He then relocates Mallory's birds to the fridge and removes the window coverings, an act observed by Douglas from a distance. After Tom discovers the drawings, Gary swiftly incapacitates him. He then opens the front garage door in an attempt to expose Douglas, who promptly shields his eyes. Meanwhile, upstairs, Olympia and Mallory deliver two robust and lovely babies. Abruptly, Gary barges into the room and raises the blinds before Olympia, who succumbs instantly to the entity. Mallory swiftly rescues the baby from Olympia before she races towards the window to self-delete. Next, Gary seizes Cheryl's face and compels her to open her eyes to the outside, leading to her self-deletion with scissors. As Mallory shelters with the babies under a blanket, Douglas arrives with the rifle and fires blindly, injuring Gary in the arm. However, Gary promptly counterattacks by tackling Douglas, pushing him through the railing, and stabbing him with the scissors. The rifle drops to the floor as both Tom and Gary reach for it, resulting in the weapon firing. Mallory hears 2 shots before Tom approaches her, victorious in the struggle. After 5 years, Mallory and Tom have been living as a couple while raising the kids together. They've established a system to keep the house secure and use string to find supplies when necessary. One afternoon, Mallory hears cars passing nearby while on a supply run. She waits until they're gone, then hurries back to tell Tom. They decide not to go out alone anymore. Later that night, they receive a radio message about a safe compound with abundant supplies downstream. The radio provides instructions, which Tom notes on a map. To navigate the rapids, sight will be needed, and the voice advises following the forest birds' sounds as they sense the entity. Tom is keen on the compound, but Mallory suspects it's a trap. Later, while searching for supplies as a family, they hear the cars again. Tom goes to divert them while Mallory and the kids escape. The drivers, a group of deranged individuals, pressure Tom to gaze at the entity. Upon spotting Mallory and the children, Tom shoots at them. He eliminates some of them, but they retaliate, forcing Tom to remove his blindfold for better accuracy to protect his family. After swiftly defeating them, Tom glimpses the entity and self-deletes. Overwhelmed by her grief, Mallory decides it's finally time to head for the shelter. After 42 hours on the river, they swiftly approach the rapids. As they reach the turbulent waters, Mallory does her utmost to navigate through, but the boat overturns, plunging everyone into the river. Mallory calls out for the kids and locates the boy in the water, while the girl has managed to reach the shore. Mallory swiftly locates her daughter thanks to the bell she's ringing. As they walk through the woods, they hear the entity mimicking Tom's voice. Mallory attempts to flee but stumbles down a small hill. The voice pursues the children, nearly tempting the boy to remove his blindfold, but Mallory intervenes just in time. Although she can't find the girl initially, Mallory's apologies and voice guide her daughter back to safety. The family follows the bird sounds, sprinting when the entity closes in. Despite a few falls, they reach the compound, the door opening just in time. Inside, Mallory and her family undergo eye checks and are approved to stay. They meet the radio voice, learning the compound is a blind school filled with survivors and birds that serve as alarms. Ready to start anew, Mallory names the kids, the girl after her mother, Olympia, and the boy after Tom. Finally, she releases her birds from the box to join the others in the sanctuary. Don't forget to like, subscribe and enable notifications for more content like this. Thank you for watching.